For those of you who are listening on the podcast around the world, perhaps you're not familiar with something that we either have or had, I'm not sure, here in America that we called soap operas. And basically, a soap opera is a TV show that's a ongoing drama. And during the commercial breaks, they'd sell soap. That's why they called it soap operas. And when I was a child, now understand, I grew up in rural Kentucky in an old house built of logs somewhere in the 1800s and lived on a farm. And my mother and my father would go to work. We were a little older then. And me and my two other brothers, my brother David had already started working around farms and stuff, so he'd be gone. And my brother Dan got us all hooked on a soap opera. It was called The Doctors. And it'd come on about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By that time, the day had started to warm up. But if you closed that old house up, because it had it upstairs, get some fans going, it could be pretty comfortable in there. So we'd be sitting in the dark, waiting for the doctors to come on. And of course, the doctors, it was a drama, and they had trouble. Just so much trouble. And this was kind of like a picture of life. Because many times in life, there's trouble. And people get caught up in their trouble. And they don't know where to turn. They don't know who to go to. And oftentimes the trouble just comes to the point to where it's just so overwhelming that people do crazy things sometimes in the midst of their trouble. Now, I'm telling you all of this to reiterate what I talked about on Monday. In times like this, there's trouble. And there's always going to be trouble because in this world, Scripture says, you shall have tribulation. But Jesus said, He's overcome the world. So that's why I gave you the Scripture on Monday. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3, 2 words that says, consider Jesus. And then in verse 2, he says, Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. I know we had trouble in our family back in the 60s. And my mother reached out to a television radio minister out of Cincinnati. And he was so kind to write her a very thoughtful letter to encourage her and to help her strengthen her through some difficult times. Because you see, he was a minister of the gospel. I am a minister of the gospel. And the truth being, if you are a believer, you are a minister of the gospel. And our responsibility is to help people find their way to God, even in the midst of trouble, midst of times of anxiety. Because I believe that Jesus Christ will help us to be able to deal with the trouble. Because He says, I come to give peace. And I believe that He does. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.